Hare Krishna, dear devotees, welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. Here in the live studios in Hive. I found out today that in Hungarian, Hive means haven. So here we are in this little two-bedroom, two-bathroom flat of His Grace Radharaman Prabhu. And this flat has turned into a little haven for us in this time of intense crisis, worldwide crisis. None of us in this lifetime has seen anything like the disturbance that this little virus is causing to the whole world. And yet, as much anxiety as everyone's in, when we sit down together like this every day and hear Srila Prabhupada's books together and discuss them and relish them together, whatever problems are out there in the world, they just go away. They just disappear. And I'm thinking, if we could only do this 24/7, we could be really free. Anyway, it's a start. We're headed in the right direction. Welcome aboard, all of you. And I'm expecting new arrivals. I found out last night from Davide, who owns the Facebook page or the Facebook account that we're recording on, that we have achieved now 2,150 subscribers or followers. And the views have been increasing like anything. And I expect that to increase more because there is a ministry of education who I'm beginning to be the advisor of. Tapan Mishra Prabhu is heading it up. And he put references to this Facebook link and the YouTube link to our videos, daily videos, as kind of a model for devotees to learn how to read Prabhupada's books and take reflections and answer questions in a simple way, not so academic, but simply the art of hearing and repeating again and again. This is the way the mind learns. Just like when we were children, we learned our language, sometimes two languages. I know people who one of the parents speaks one language and the other speaks another language, and they speak both the languages to the child, and he comes out bilingual, without any school, without any chalkboard, without any diagrams on the chalkboard. Just by hearing, we learn our languages. So we have a lot of interference. The child in the beginning doesn't have very much interference. He's kind of like a blank slate, Srila Prabhupada described. We're not such blank slates. We've done a lot of things, most of us, before we took up Krishna consciousness. But the lust and the greed and the anger that Krishna recommends that every sane person give up in order to go into a degraded situation. When we hear like this, those things are just washed away by the sound, by the transcendental sound incarnation of Krishna. How lucky we are. How lucky. So we should bask in that good fortune, bask in that gratitude. And this will be the cornerstone of our house of bhakti. And the deeper our gratitude goes, the taller we can build our house of bhakti until it reaches the spiritual sky. Okay, enough of my waxing philosophical. Let's hear the Srimad Bhagavata Mahima Stotram. the glorification of the Srimad Bhagavatam by Srila Sanatana Goswami, which he composed, by the way, not long after he listened to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spent 2 months with him, straight, day in and day out, instructing him directly, his mouth to Sanatana Goswami's ear. So, as a result, Srila Sanatana Goswami wrote this about the Srimad Bhagavatam, because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to preach the Srimad Bhagavatam. It goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidwan Doditaditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguro Man Mahadana Mannisdadaga Madbhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu saduta dayin adini chochata kada. Excuse me. Hanamun chagadachin mam premna rit kanta yospuda. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So Krishna is explaining the Sankhya philosophy to Uddhava. We've reached 19th verse of the 24th chapter of 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Krishna speaking. The material universe may be considered real, having nature as its original ingredient and final state. Lord Mahavishnu is the resting place of nature, which becomes manifest by the power of time. Thus nature, the Almighty Vishnu, and time are not different from me, the Supreme Absolute Truth. Purport. Material nature is the energy of the Lord. Mahavishnu is his plenary portion, and time represents the Lord's activity. In this way, time and nature are always subservient to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who creates, maintains, and annihilates all that exists through the agency of his potencies and plenary portions. In other words, Lord Krishna is the Absolute Truth because he contains all existence within himself. Text 20. As long as the Supreme Personality of Godhead continues to glance upon material nature, the material world continues to exist, perpetually manifesting through procreation the great and variegated flow of universal creation. Purport. Although the Mahatattva, impelled by the force of time, is the ingredient cause of this world, it is clearly explained here that the Supreme Lord is personally the only ultimate cause of all that exists. Time and nature are powerless to act without the glance of the personality of Godhead. He creates unlimited material variety for the sense gratification of the conditioned souls who try to enjoy life as the children of particular parents and as the parents of particular children throughout the 8,400,000 species of life. Text 21. I am the basis of the universal form, which displays endless variety through the repeated creation, maintenance, and destruction of the material planetary systems, originally containing within itself all planets in their dormant state. My universal form manifests the varieties of created existence by arranging the coordinated combination of the 5 elements. Purport. According to Srila Sridhar Swami, the word Maya refers to the Lord in his form as time. And that Maya has a long A at the end and not 2 long A's. The word Maya refers to the Lord in his form as eternal time. Text 22 to 27. At the time of annihilation, the mortal body of the living being becomes merged into food. Food merges into grains, and the grains merge back into the earth. The earth merges into its subtle sensation, fragrance. Fragrance merges into water, and water further merges into its own quality, taste. That taste merges into fire, which merges into form. Form merges into touch, and touch merges into ether. Ether finally merges into the sensation of sound. The senses all merge into their own origins, the presiding demigods. And they, O gentle Uddhava, merge into the controlling mind, which itself merges into false ego in the mode of goodness. Sound becomes one with false ego in the mode of ignorance, and all-powerful false ego, the first of all the physical elements, merges into the total nature. The total material nature, the primary repository of the 3 basic modes, dissolves into the modes. These modes of nature then merge into the unmanifest form of nature, and that unmanifest form merges into time. Time merges into the Supreme Lord, present in the form of the omniscient Mahapurusha, the original activator of all living beings. That origin of all life merges into me, the unborn Supreme Soul, who remains alone, established within himself. It is from him that all creation and annihilation are manifested. Purport. The annihilation of the material world is the reversal of the process of creation, and ultimately everything is merged to rest within the Supreme Lord, who remains full in his absolute position. Text 28. Just as the rising sun removes the darkness of the sky. Similarly, this scientific knowledge of cosmic annihilation removes all illusory duality from the mind of a serious student. Even if illusion somehow enters his heart, it cannot remain there. Purport. Just as the brilliant sun removes all darkness from the sky, a clear understanding of the knowledge spoken by Lord Krishna to Uddhava removes all ignorance concocted by the material mind. One will then no longer accept the material body as the self. Even if such illusion temporarily manifests within one's consciousness, it will be driven away by the resurgence of one's spiritual knowledge. Now I'd like to make a comment on this. You know, even in our conditioned state, in fallen state, in so many ways, if we actually hear seriously, then this is the result. And even when we stop hearing and the modes flood back in and we forget or whatever, here it says, it will be driven away by the resurgence of one's spiritual knowledge. So while we're hearing, if we're hearing attentively, with rapt attention, and not doing something else in our mind while we're hearing, but if we simply hear, the resurgence of our spiritual knowledge comes back automatically, without separate endeavor. And if we continue to do this regularly every day and increase the amount of time we do it, eventually that resurgence of our spiritual knowledge will not be necessary because it will become fixed. This is the process of cleaning the mind from material contamination and fixing the mind on Krishna in this age of Kali. We can't sit in one place, close our eyes, and concentrate our mind and meditate on the form of Krishna very easily. Maybe some people can. Maybe it's possible for some, but for the vast majority, it's not. But this is for everyone, as we hear every day in Sanatana Goswami's prayer. It can be done by anyone and everyone hearing of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Again, we're just very fortunate. Most people in the world right now are locked down in their rooms or their houses, some of them in a little room, some of them in a huge house, rattling around in it, and lonely. Can't go out, can't mix, can't go to a football game or whatever they do, music concert or whatever. We're naturally social beings. The soul is a social being. So therefore the social distancing is causing great trauma all over the world. But we can be resurgent when our spiritual knowledge resurgence comes as a result of hearing like this together. Then it's immaterial where we are. Text 29. This is the last verse in this chapter. So now we'll, as our, Sergeant of Arms over here, Radharaman, has kindly explained, we're going to finish early. So whether we want to go on or not, let's make up our minds after this verse. Verse 29. Thus, I, the perfect seer of everything, material and spiritual, have spoken this knowledge of Sankhya, which destroys the illusion of doubt by scientific analysis of creation and annihilation. Purport. Lord Sri Krishna has explained that the material mind accepts and rejects many different concepts of life, generating innumerable false arguments about the actual process of perfection. But a person who takes shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead can see everything with clear intelligence. One who understands how the Supreme Lord creates and annihilates can be liberated from material bondage and devote himself to the eternal service of the Supreme Lord. Thus end the purports of the humble servants of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada to the 11th Canto, 24th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Philosophy of Sankhya. Oh, let it destroy our illusion. Let it create the spiritual world in our minds. The philosophy of Sankhya. Jai Shri Krishna. Haribo. Okay, now, 7:34. We got plenty of time. Let's move on. Okay. Chapter 25. The three modes of nature and beyond. Here we go. Summary. To establish the transcendental nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this chapter describes the various functional manifestations of the three modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance, which arise in the mind. Control of the mind, control of the senses, tolerance, and so forth are manifestations of the unmixed mode of goodness. Desire, endeavor, false pride, and so on are manifestations of the unmixed mode of passion. And anger, greed, and bewilderment are among the functions of the unmixed mode of ignorance. In the admixture of the three modes, we find the concept of I and mine, behavior in accordance with this mentality by body, mind, and words, adherence to the principles of religiosity, economic development, and sense gratification, and the fixed pursuit of one's occupational duty for material interest. A person whose character is in the mode of goodness worships Lord Hari in a spirit of devotion without regard to profit. On the other hand, one who hankers after the fruits of his worship of the Lord is passionate by nature, and one who desires violence is in the mode of ignorance. These modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance are present in the infinitesimal living entity, whereas the Supreme Personality of Godhead is transcendental to the three modes of material nature. The substance, place, and result of activity, along with the time, the knowledge underlying action, the activity itself, the performer, his faith, his level of awareness, his spiritual progress, and his destination after death, all partake of the three modes and manifest variously in terms of distinctions and hierarchies. But objects related to the Supreme Personality, places connected with Him, happiness based on Him, the time occupied in His worship, knowledge related to Him, work offered to Him, the performer of work who acts under His shelter, faith in His devotional service, progress toward the spiritual realm, and the destination of the Supreme Lord's personal abode, all transcend the material modes. I mean, that's a big, deep paragraph. There are many different destinations and conditions of life for the spirit soul within the cycle of material existence. These are all based on the modes of nature and on fruitive activities which are governed by the modes. It is only by practicing the yoga of pure devotional service to the Supreme Lord that one can conquer the three modes, which arise originally from the mind. After obtaining a human body, which has the potential for developing knowledge and realization, a person who is intelligent should renounce association with the three modes of nature and then worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. First, by increasing the mode of goodness, one can defeat passion and ignorance. Then, one can conquer material goodness by evolving his consciousness to the platform of transcendence. At that time, he becomes entirely liberated from the material modes, gives up his subtle body, the material mind, intelligence, and false ego, and attains the association of the personality of Godhead. By the shattering of his subtle covering, the living entity is able to come face to face with the Supreme Lord and thus achieve absolute fulfillment by His grace. Text 1. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O best among men, please listen as I describe to you how the living entity attains a particular nature by association with individual material modes. Purport. The word asamishra indicates that which is not mixed with anything else. Mishra, asamishra. Mishra means mixed. Asamishra means not mixed, unmixed. Lord Krishna now explains how each of the three material modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance, acting separately, causes a conditioned soul to manifest a particular type of existence. The living entity is ultimately transcendental to the modes of nature, being part and parcel of Lord Krishna, but in conditioned life, he manifests many material qualities, or manifests material qualities. This is described in the following verses, text 2 to 5. Mind and sense control, tolerance, discrimination, sticking to one's prescribed duty, truthfulness, mercy, careful study of the past and future, satisfaction in any condition, generosity, renunciation of sense gratification, faith in the spiritual master, being embarrassed at improper action, charity, simplicity, humbleness, and satisfaction within oneself are qualities of the mode of goodness. Material desire, great endeavor, audacity, dissatisfaction even in gain, false pride, praying for material advancement, considering oneself different and better than others, sense gratification, rash eagerness to fight, a fondness for hearing oneself praised, the tendency to ridicule others, advertising one's own prowess and justifying one's actions by one's strength are the qualities of the mode of passion. Intolerant anger, stinginess, speaking without scriptural authority, violent hatred, living as a parasite, hypocrisy, chronic fatigue, quarrel, lamentation, delusion, unhappiness, depression, sleeping too much, false expectations, fear, and laziness constitute the major qualities of the mode of ignorance. Now, please hear about the combination of these three modes. Fasten your seatbelts. You are now free. Well, not yet are you free to move about the cabin. My dear Uddhava, the combination of all three modes is present in the mentality of I and mine. The ordinary transactions of this world, which are carried out through the agency of the mind, the objects of perception, the senses, and the vital airs of the physical body, are also based on the combination of the modes. Purport. The illusory concept of I and mine occurs by the mixture of the three modes of nature. A person in goodness may feel, I am peaceful. One in passion may think, I am lusty. And one in ignorance may think, I am angry. Similarly, one may think, my peace, my lust, or my anger. One completely absorbed in the mentality of being peaceful could not work in the material world. He would lack any impulse to perform activity. Similarly, one absorbed in lust would be blinded without at least a tinge of peacefulness or restraint. One overwhelmed with anger could not function properly in the material world without the mixture of other qualities. Thus we find that a material mode does not occur in a pure isolated form, but rather is mixed with other modes, thereby making possible normal functioning within this world. Ultimately, one should think, I am an eternal servant of Lord Krishna, and my only possession is loving service to the Lord. This is the pure state of consciousness beyond the material modes of nature. Text 7. When a person devotes himself to religiosity, economic development, and sense gratification, the faith, wealth, and sensual enjoyment obtained by his endeavors display the interaction of the three modes of nature. Purport. Religiosity, economic development, and sense gratification are situated within the modes of nature, and faith, wealth, and enjoyment obtained by them clearly reveal the particular situation of a person within the modes of nature. Text 8. When a man desires sense gratification, being attached to family life, and when he consequently becomes established in religious and occupational duties, the combination of the modes of nature is manifest. Purport. According to Srila Sridhar Swami, religious duties performed for promotion to heaven are understood to be in the mode of passion. Those performed to enjoy ordinary family life are in the mode of ignorance, and those performed selflessly to fulfill one's occupational duty in the varnashram system are in the mode of goodness. The Lord has thus explained how mundane religiosity is manifest within the modes of nature. Text 9. A person exhibiting qualities such as self-control is understood to be predominantly in the mode of goodness. Similarly, a passionate person is recognized by his lust, and one in ignorance is recognized by qualities such as anger. Text 10. Any person, whether man or woman, who worships me with loving devotion, offering his or her prescribed duties unto me without material attachment, is understood to be situated in goodness. Text 11. When a person worships me by his prescribed duties with the hope of gaining material benefit, his nature should be understood to be in passion. And one who worships me with the desire to commit violence against others is in ignorance. Text 12. These three modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, influence the living entity, but not me. Manifesting within his mind, they induce the living entity to become attached to material bodies and other created objects. In this way, the living entity is bound up. Purport. The living entity is the marginal potency of the Supreme Lord, having the tendency to be overwhelmed by the Lord's illusory material energy. The personality of Godhead, however, is the absolute controller of illusion. Illusion can never control the Lord. Thus, the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna is the eternal object of service for all living entities who are eternally servants of the Lord. The three modes of nature manifest within the material energy. When a conditioned soul adopts the material mentality, the modes exert their influence within the jurisdiction of that mentality. But if one purifies one's mind in the devotional service of the Lord, the modes of nature can no longer act upon him, since they have no influence on the spiritual platform. Text 13. When the mode of goodness, which is luminous, pure, and auspicious, predominates over passion and ignorance, a man becomes endowed with happiness, virtue, knowledge, and other good qualities. Purport. One can control one's mind and senses in the mode of goodness. Text 14. When the mode of passion, which causes attachment, separatism, and activity, conquers ignorance and goodness, a man begins to work hard to acquire prestige and fortune. Thus, in the mode of passion, he experiences anxiety and struggle. Text 15. When the mode of ignorance conquers passion and goodness, it covers one's consciousness and makes one foolish and dull. Falling into lamentation and illusion, a person in the mode of ignorance sleeps excessively, indulges in false hopes, and displays violence toward others. Text 16. When consciousness becomes clear and the senses are detached from matter, one experiences fearlessness within the material body and detachment from the material mind. You should understand this situation to be the predominance of the mode of goodness, in which one has the opportunity to realize me. Text 17. You should discern the mode of passion by its symptoms, the distortion of the intelligence because of too much activity, the inability of the perceiving senses to disentangle themselves from mundane objects, an unhealthy condition of the working physical organs, and the unsteady perplexity of the mind. 18. When one's higher awareness fails and finally disappears, and one is thus unable to concentrate his attention, his mind is ruined and manifests ignorance and depression. You should understand this situation to be the predominance of the mode of ignorance. I mean, what psychological study of human behavior are we hearing? Text 19. With the increase of the mode of goodness, the strength of the demigod similarly increases. When passion increases, the demoniac becomes strong. And with the rise of ignorance, O Uddhava, the strength of the most wicked increases. Text 20. It should be understood that alert wakefulness comes from the mode of goodness, sleep with dreaming from the mode of passion, and deep dreamless sleep from the mode of ignorance. The fourth state of consciousness pervades these three and is transcendental. Purport. Our original Krishna consciousness exists eternally within the soul, and it is also present in all the three phases of awareness, namely normal wakefulness, dreaming, and dreamless sleep. Being covered by the modes of nature, this spiritual consciousness may not be manifest, but it continues to exist eternally as the real nature of the living entity. Text 21. Learned persons dedicated to Vedic culture are elevated by the mode of goodness to higher and higher positions. The mode of ignorance, on the other hand, forces one to fall headfirst into lower and lower births. And by the mode of passion, one continues transmigrating through human bodies. I'm getting a high five sign from Ron, but we're social distancing, so we can't actually experience the ecstasy of the high five slap, hand to hand. Okay, I'll stop in 5 minutes. Purport. Shudras, persons in the mode of goodness, Shudras, persons in the mode of ignorance, are generally in deep illusion about the purpose of life, accepting the gross material body as the self. Those in passion and ignorance are called Vaishyas and hanker intensely for wealth, whereas Kshatriyas, who are in the mode of passion, are eager for prestige and power. Those in the mode of goodness, however, hanker after perfect knowledge. They are therefore called Brahmanas. Such a person is promoted up to the supreme material position of Brahmaloka, the planet of Lord Brahma. One who is in the mode of ignorance gradually falls to the level of unmoving species, such as trees and stones, while one in the mode of passion, filled with material desire, but satisfying it within Vedic culture, is allowed to remain in human society. We're absorbed here in a very deep study of activity in this material world. What causes it? How we should act, how we shouldn't act, how we should feel, how we shouldn't feel, how we should think and shouldn't think. It's profoundly wise. This deserves a deep study of this chapter. These last 3 chapters, actually. Okay, we're going to stop our reading here tonight. And if there's any reflections that anyone has, Radharaman is sticking up his hand before I finish my sentence. He's eager. This is the right thing. Utsaha nishchaya tarya. Okay.
Actually, Maharaj, I've got a question from the last chapter from Vamsi Vilasi Das Brahmachari from Wales.
Vamsi Vilasi Das Brahmachari. That was Bhakta Sam before.
Yeah.
Right? Haribol. Vamsi Vilas Brahmachari.
So Vamsi Vilasi Prabhu said, Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. the previous chapter, text 2 said that in Krita Yuga, the seer and seen are non-different as they are before the creation. Can this be said for the Lord's abode also? Is this the vision that a devotee aspires for, of seeing everything as Krishna's energy?
Yes, it is, but it's not the same as the oneness that is in the spiritual world. In the spiritual world, there are no modes of nature. So therefore the seer and the seen, although they're non-different, it reveals the actual variety of the spiritual world. In other words, in the spiritual world, we don't have a material body. There's no difference between the soul and the self, the soul and the body. Soul and the body are the same quality, same energy. Spiritual energy, internal energy. So there is a oneness in the Krita Yuga because everything's in goodness. It's in almost unmixed goodness in Satya Yuga, in the beginning of Satya Yuga. But the other modes are there. That's what this is describing. This verse is elaborating on this, what the question is about. So there's always some chance of ignorance coming into passion and goodness coming into passion or ignorance in this material world, always, from the top to the bottom. Therefore, sometimes even in the higher planets, the demons will come and try to disturb. Sometimes they come here together, the demons and the devotees and the demigods, to fight on the earth, just for the pleasure of fighting in a different place. So, in the Krita Yuga, the mode of goodness is very prominent. So therefore, based on this chapter we just read, let me see, we're in chapter 22. We're in verse 22. Keep track of that, okay? It should be understood that alert wakefulness comes from the mode of goodness. So in Krita Yuga, you just extract these qualities of goodness and then project them into the age of Krita, which is the mode of goodness, the age that is predominantly the mode of goodness. Then you can get a sense of what people are like. And therefore, because it's very close to perfection, but not completely perfect, because they don't see the Lord face to face in their normal activities. But in the spiritual world, within pure goodness, they see the Lord face to face all the time in pure goodness. So therefore, in that sense, the seer and the seen are one, because one can actually see the source of his existence and the source of his love. The object of his love, rather. Therefore, he's complete. But in the material mode of goodness, in Krita Yuga, he's not complete. He still has a ways to go. And even in Satyaloka, which is Lord Brahma's abode, it's as close to perfect as you can get. It's very similar. But still, Lord Brahma has to give up his body. And all those that are in that situation have to give up their body. So that oneness is not absolute. Whereas in the spiritual world, the seer and the seen become one in the sense that they never have to leave each other. They never have to depart. They never have to grow old. They never have to die. Therefore, we should want to go there. And if we want to go there, we've just been advised very beautifully to identify ourselves only as a servant of Krishna. And the more we do that, the more we become free from the modes of nature, and the more we can actually disassociate ourselves from identifying with this body as ourself, and then we become happy, even while we're still in the material world. Because why? Here, it says here, we just read it. By being covered by the modes of nature, the spiritual consciousness may not be manifest, but it continues to exist eternally as the real nature of living entity. So that real nature of living entity, his spiritual tendency to serve Krishna, is there all the time. But when we're mixed with the modes of nature, we want to serve something or someone else. That's the symptom of the mode of nature, of the material modes of nature, conditioned soul. But if we make it our, as Rupa Goswami said, if we make it our ambition to serve Krishna, then we become liberated even in this life. If we make it our honest and only ambition to serve Krishna, even while we're in the material world, we will not be drugged down, or even if we are occasionally drugged down, as we've just read, it will get washed away very quickly. Anything else?
Another question. From Jai Sachinandana.
From Jai Sachinandan in Miami?
I don't know where in Miami, or if he's in Miami or not, but it says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All
You have to speak
glories.
louder into the mic. Your voice is very sweet and soft, but it won't be heard so well.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. In text 18, we see that our inability to concentrate our attention is due to our association with the mode of ignorance. So looking at most popular mental illnesses like ADD or ADHD, are we correct to assume that this is caused by the mode of ignorance and can be corrected by bringing oneself up to the mode of goodness or transcending the modes altogether?
Well said. Exactly. And that's why while I was reading these whole last two chapters, I was just realizing that if a psychiatrist actually learns this in detail and can teach it to his patient, how many people can be helped? And therefore Prabhupada said, all the answers to all the problems, personal and collective, individual and collective, are there in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Everything, complete. So what we should do is remove ourselves from the modes by constantly thinking of Krishna, feeling for Krishna, willing for Krishna. In other words, make Krishna's will our will. Do what Krishna wants us to do. Do what Krishna wants to be done. And we get that through the will of our spiritual masters, especially in our case, in ISKCON, through Srila Prabhupada, who is the founder, spiritual master, the exemplar, the perfect devotee in all ways, the exemplar. And in the Upadeshamrita, text 5, there's a paragraph in which Srila Prabhupada describes what is an uttamadhikari. He says, one who very strictly chants all his rounds, follows the four regulative principles strictly, and always thinks of how to spread Krishna consciousness. That's how he defines the uttamadhikari, the person that we should give ourselves to, serve, want to serve. Clear. Yes.
Something from Vilas Manjari.
Hare Krishna Vilas Manjari.
Says, I appreciated in verse 6 how the concept of I and mine occur in each mode, and the description of how one feels the sense of I and mine in pure consciousness.
Yes.
I am an eternal servant of Krishna, and my only possession is loving service to the Lord.
That's it. That's it. Nicely said. Now we simply have to put it into practice. That's all. And the details are here, how to put it into practice very, very easily. That's why Prabhupada was always saying, what is the difficulty? It's like this. And then we go, oh, yeah, Prabhupada. And when he said it, everybody would think, yeah, that's right, it's easy. It is easy, that's right. And we would be ecstatic in his association. But here we are, listening to purports compiled by my god brothers, Ridananda Maharaj and Gopi Purananda Prabhu. He's so, anyway, we feel his separation so much. And Dravida Prabhu, who is a very, very, very good editor, brilliant editor. And the result was this masterpiece, empowered by the will of Prabhupada. When a group of devotees cooperate together to do something that the spiritual master expressly desired to be done, then the descending potency enters into that endeavor. Whatever it is.
From Pranahari.
Pranahari. Haribo Prana. We're missing you over here. Wish you were here.
He says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. It was said that the modes of nature have no influence on the spiritual platform. Could you comment on the attainment of the spiritual platform? Srila Prabhupada says it is not an artificial imposition on the mind, yet in the stage of sadhana it sometimes seems artificial because we have to force ourselves to take the medicine. How to stay inspired in this process?
Keep taking the medicine. Don't stop taking the medicine for an instant, and then automatically you transcend the modes of nature. And what is that? We just heard it, Prana. Being covered by the modes of nature, this spiritual consciousness may not be manifest, but it continues to exist eternally as the real nature of a living entity. So this is the point. That consciousness is there. It never goes away. It's there all the time. It's not something that you have to force into the mind. We think we're forcing ourselves, but it's the time is forcing us to do something else. All we have to do is decide, and Krishna will help us. As long as we're thinking we're the doer, then if we feel like we're forcing to do something. So you have to cultivate the desire to do the right thing, and the strong desire to do the right thing propels us into doing the right thing. And because the real nature of the living entity continues to exist eternally inside of us, it's natural. In other words, we don't struggle because of sadhana bhakti. We struggle because of the modes of nature. That's what this chapter is about. Explaining how the modes of nature combine together to cause us to act in different ways. And then we identify with that. And therefore we think we have to force ourselves. We do. But not really. Because we're eternally a spiritual being. And our eternal nature is to serve Krishna. So when you're actually serving Krishna, then you feel good, you feel proper, you feel satisfied completely. If you're not serving Krishna, then you have to struggle. Because that's the way the modes are created. They're created to satisfy our material desires. The material nature is created by the combined unfulfilled desires of the conditioned souls. Oh, but that's not fair. Oh, yes, it's fair. Everyone's getting exactly what they wanted and exactly what they deserve. But as soon as one takes the order of the spiritual master seriously and carries it out, then we become free immediately while we're doing that. And we just have to expand the amount of time we're doing that. That's all. And what's the inspiration? When we are doing it, we feel great. And when we're not doing it, we either feel agitated, or we feel bewildered, or we feel angry, or we feel all these modes of nature, mixing and changing and mixing and changing. But the soul doesn't change. We have to become convinced of that. And the more you're convinced of that, the more your faith becomes fixed. 17th chapter, Gita, we're identified as having a certain quality of faith according to the modes of nature we've acquired in this material body. So the more we're in ignorance, the more we have to struggle. The more in passion, the more we have to struggle. In goodness, we have to struggle less. But the soul is underneath all of those things as the, activator. It's the activator. Like you put electricity through a machine, the machine's useless unless the electricity is going into it. So the modes of nature can't act without the soul being present. But the soul is actually a servant of Krishna. So if the soul practices, that's what Sadhana Bhakti is. It's practicing serving Krishna with the body that you have, with the mind that you have. So the degree to which that is easy is a degree to which we are actually serious, the degree to which we are actually determined, the degree to which we are aptly convinced. And we become convinced by the taste that we get from chanting and hearing and serving and cooking for Krishna and cleaning for Krishna and, worshipping the altar, worshipping the deity. Sharing among ourselves, and especially trying to convince others.
Something from Rati Manjari.
Rati Manjari, go ahead. Hey Rati.
Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. It is so soothing to have your daily company, guiding us onwards through the labyrinth of the material world and getting us home.
Well, thanks, Rati. Everybody needs encouragement. Your words are always very encouraging. Hare Krishna. I'm just repeating. I'm just trying to repeat what I've heard. That's it. When you stop trying to figure out yourself and then say it a little cleverly or a little differently or whatever, and just repeat what you've heard from your spiritual master. In your own words, true, but still without changing the meaning. Then you become free immediately, effortless. Surrender. Surrender the false ego. Surrender the sense of I and mine. And become Krishna's. You belong to Krishna. Everything that you have belongs to Krishna. Because it was all created by Krishna's energy. It never was yours in the first place. Renunciation is a myth. Okay, my gosh, it's 20 minutes after 8. My, how time flies when you're having a good time. Okay, everybody, Hare Krishna, thank you very much. All glories to Krishna, all glories to Uddhava, all glories to the glorious Uddhava Gita. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. See you tomorrow, same place, same station, here in Hythe, the Haven. Hare Krishna. See you tomorrow.